to Ivy House and welcome to Gyorgy Pauk. I've been trying to practice how to say his name. Will you say it properly?
György.
Gyorgy.
But I have to tell the story.
Tell the story.
In Australia, many years ago, my first tour in Australia, I was asked, the announcer, ABC announcer, asked me, how do you spell your name? How do you pronounce your name? I said, Gyorgy Pauk. That he tried to imitate György, they couldn't. At the end, he told me, we are going to call you what? Gyorgy Pauk. Fine.
Okay, so for the rest of the interview, I'm going to call it Gregory.
But the György part of it is still fine, but the problems are many times with the Pauk. I'm not going to tell you what they call me. Sometimes.
Well, György has lived many different musical lives, all to the kind of highest standards. He's currently a professor at the Royal Academy of Music and is one of the most sought-after teachers in the country. Before that, he was an international concert soloist, worked with some of the finest conductors, musicians, a chamber musician in a trio. For a short time, he led an orchestra. It started all off in Hungary, really, and winning prizes as well. So he's really seen the whole music business over the last few decades. Yeah. So we'll go back to the beginning. Can you tell us about your first memories of the violin, the sound of the violin, and how it played in your life?
Yeah, well, I would start my life, which I think is relevant and very important to know, that I was born the worst time possible, just before the war, Second World War, broke out, 1936. 2 years later, or 3 years later, 1939, the World War broke out. And I lived in Hungary, which anyway, in any case, always was a very anti-Semitic country. I didn't feel at the beginning, I don't remember my first 4 or 5 years of my life, I don't remember that I suffered because of the anti-Semitism, but I did afterwards. Where we lived when we lived in Budapest in that house, there was a lady who was a very well-known violin teacher. My mother was a pianist. She was a very well-known pianist, studied together with Annie Fischer, whom I'm sure you know the name of. Apparently I was told that the two girls went to piano lessons at the academy, and once one of the mothers took them and the other time the other mother. And so I heard music all my life in where we lived. My mother was playing quite a lot of chamber music. She played with a lot of violinists. So I heard the violin sound practically since I was 3 years old, I can remember. And again, I was told that I was a very cheeky little boy. And when I heard some of the violinists were playing out of tune, I said, out of tune. and once even I'm told that one of the violinists hit me. That he was anyway, so I grew up with music. And as I said, there was a lady in the same house as it happened by accident, by chance, who was the most well-known violin teacher in Budapest, who everybody knew, for little children, for small children. She taught me how to play the violin. Of course, as a 6 years old, I had no idea what I was told. I just imitated what I was told. But many years later, when I started to think about it, and I'm thinking about now, she taught me absolutely perfectly how to hold a violin, how to hold a bow. And it became absolutely natural. So that's where I learned, and many young Hungarian players studied with her. She was a wonderful teacher, but up till a certain standard. And she knew it, so she realized it. And I don't want to go, I want to stay with the war years.
Because music became very associated with your mother, and you unimaginably, tragically lost both of your parents very young.
Yes, in 1942, already in 1942, all the men, Jewish men, were taken away for labor camps, including my father. I was 6 years old, not yet 6 years old, and I have never seen him again in my life. I stayed with my mother and with my grandmother, or her mother, for a while, until 1944, when most probably you know from the history that Hungary was the last country which was occupied by the Germans. 1944, March 19th, Hungary was the last country. But already we suffered, as I mentioned it earlier, that Hungarians are basically very, very anti-Semitic. And already from the 1920s, some of the laws in Hungary, the universities were not allowed, they didn't allow Jewish people to study, and many of the Hungarian young people, they left Hungary in the 1920s. Anyway, coming back to 1944, the Germans occupied Hungary. Soon, very soon, my grandparents from my father's side, they were living in the countryside, not very far from Budapest. I saw them only a few times in my life. All the Jews from the countryside were immediately taken away to Auschwitz. Again, most probably you know that within 6 months, 1944, within 6 months, 600,000 Hungarian Jews were killed. It was for the Germans. It was the last country, and they knew it already. The war was lost. But there was Adolf Eichmann, who is the last thing. What he wanted to do is just to kill as many Jews as possible. Somehow, I still survived with my mother and with my grandmother and another cousin of mine. We survived. We were not taken away to labor camps or anywhere yet. Then there were no more men, no more men, Jews. So they went after the young women. We lived, and one day, which I remember, around September, October 1994, by that time, the Hungarian Nazis took over. And the Hungarian Nazis, if one can say, they were even more vicious than the Germans. They came into our place one day and they took away my mother. All the young ladies who remained there. Somehow, children and my grandmother were left there. Again, I never saw her again, my mother. I don't even know where she died. They didn't take her away, she didn't take her to abroad. She still died somewhere in Hungary, because I met, after the war, I met people who were with her. So she still died there. Somehow, as I said, I survived. By that time, in Budapest, there were houses where all the Jews were kept. As it happened, our house where we lived, that was a so-called Jewish house. And we were staying in our apartment, which 2 rooms, or 3 rooms, and we were about 60 people, all together. And half of the time up in the flat, half of the time in the cellar, because of the bombs. By that time, all the Russians were bombing the whole city.
Do you have memories of the day-to-day life at that time?
Yes, two memories: hunger and cold. These are the 2 memories I kept, which these kind of things I cannot forget. You live through such a time which goes through all your life. It's you cannot escape that. I'm told, even my children, one of them is here, is how we brought them up. They felt it. They were always a little bit anxious. Luckily, their children are already absolutely free of that.
And you said to this day you always make sure you have food somewhere.
That's I somehow, it's just a bad habit that because of this hunger and cold and all that, and the fright. All my life, when I'm even today, I'm in a hotel, I'm taking some food with me because in case I would be hungry. It's just that it has all. And another thing, I switch off when I go out from a room, I switch off the light because that's how I got used to when I was a child. Anyway, that's not important.
But your grandmother was there to look
my
after
grandmother but the last word of my mother, I remember telling to my grandmother, please take care of my son. And she certainly took care of me very, very much till the day till I left the country. The last 2 weeks or 3 weeks of the war, I spent in a ghetto. All the remaining Jews who were living in these houses, they were taken to the part of Hungary, which is the Jewish part of Hungary. This became the ghetto. There, again, we were 60, 80 people staying in an apartment above which there was no food, no nothing, no water, no cold, everything. I mean, that's how, and we were waiting there for the end. Afterwards, I was told that what the Germans were planning to do was to blow up the whole ghetto. 65,000 people. That before it happened, luckily, the Russians came and liberated us. Mm-hmm. So those were the war years of the childhood, how I survived.
And then what part did music continue to play?
Well, obviously during that time I wasn't playing music. I wasn't playing music, but immediately after the war, that lady, who was also, by the way, Jewish, the violin teacher, she survived, and I continued with my violin.
And how important was it as an outlet, do you think, for you?
I would think so, but all my life, music was, as I grew up in music was the most important, the outlet of my pain. That's what I could express myself through the music. Mm-hmm. Luckily, I was lucky that I was born with talent, and this is how I survived, I suppose, through music. Yeah.
And you were at the Liszt Academy, which still continues to be of high level.
Yes. I was 13 years old when, as I said, this lady, the violin teacher, realized that I have grown out of her, and she arranged it that I went to play for the then director of the Music Academy, the world famous violinist Turecki. He was the director of the school, and also he was the continuation of the Hungarian violin school, which started back in the 19th century, and all through Joachim and Auer and Flesch and Hubay and then Turecki. So I went to play for him, but he was the head of the violin class, and he was the director of the academy. He took only students, so minimum 20, at least must have been 20 years old, and somehow he liked my playing very much, and he took me on as a 13-year-old. And so I was there between among grown-up girls and boys. Now, of course, I think grown up 20 years old. But for me, 13-year-old, it was. I was with short trousers, of course, playing. But for me, it changed all my life because I was accepted to be a student at the academy as a minor. in the meantime, I was also at school. I'm going to the gymnasium. There's a music gymnasium in Hungary also today, which I went to, which is a very good thing, because that education, we finished at 12 o'clock, from 8 to 12, and afterwards we were free to practice and go to class. So I was doing the two schools together. But I was a student at the music academy, and already then, at that time, there were the great teachers. Apart from Zaturecki, there were some. Another person who I learned most of my music education was Leo Weiner, the great composer and teacher. So I grew up in a fantastic atmosphere there.
Can you talk about that? Because the Hungarian tradition has produced some fantastic violin players, but musicians. What is it about the Hungarian tradition and the education system that's so strong?
What was?
Was.
Unfortunately, was. Well, Hungary was during communist times. We lived. I can only explain it to you. You will not understand, but you didn't go through it. Luckily, we lived in a prison. We lived in Hungary was a prison. We were not. Nobody was allowed to travel. We didn't know what's going on in the West or anywhere. So all the great people, because Hungary produced always some wonderful, great musicians. We lived all together. So I grew up with all these great professors, and because they had they lived in the same prison. So, but I don't know whether you want to talk about the violin school, which was always, as I mentioned to you, coming from Joachim and go through all the hundreds of years. It was Hungarians are talented for violin, and I'm not only thinking about many of the gypsies who they are born born with the violin, but they are talented for music. They are talented for violin. And if there are great teachers, then will be great players. Mm-hmm. The tragedy of the country was, and unfortunately even today, is that it's a very small, tiny country. And all the most talented people, all because of the size of the country, and also because of the anti-Semitism, they had to leave their birthplace. Mm-hmm. So if one thinks about it from the 1920s, if you think about names like Joseph Szigeti, Zoltán Székely, Laurent Fenyves, Sándor Vég, I don't know how many violinists, all made big careers in the West. Mm. As I said, the reason being that Hungary is a small country, they needed to play in the world, and the second, they were not all Jews, by the way, but that was one of the reasons. They felt that they wanted to make, and finally, for me, that was also the main reason that I left Hungary, because I wanted to make a career. Mm-hmm. So it was not only a political reason. By that time when I left Hungary, then it was a little bit easier, the political, but only a little bit. But I wanted to make a career, and I knew that I can only make it in the free world.
So you were working very, very hard, and you applied to 2 competitions. You actually came first.
Yes, applied. I was nominated. It was not. It's the big difference is, when you are earning something or you are sent. And I wanted to always to earn my whatever I achieved. I wanted to earn and not to be sent. But I was sent to the Paganini competition in 1956. These were still the darkest days, just before the Hungarian Revolution, which was in October 1956. I was sent to I went to the Paganini competition big difficulties. Even I didn't get my visa on time. I was late to arrive there, and apparently what never happened before, the jury came together just for me, because I was late, because I didn't get my visa. As it happened, I won the competition. It was a very, very big thing, because that was the third Paganini competition in existence. And in the first two, there were no first prize winners. So this was the first time they gave the first prize. I received the. It was a wonderful occasion, and practically the next day or 2 days later, by winning, I was ordered to go back to Hungary. That's my visa and my passport expired. Go back. So I couldn't even fulfill some of the engagements which it was offered to me. And as it happened, I arrived back to Budapest 1 day before the revolution. And then October 23rd.
What are your memories of the revolution?
Well, I was afraid. I was not one of many Hungarians. I was fighting with the guns. I was sitting in the cellar and waiting for to die again, because they bombed through the whole city. They bombed in 1944 at the war. Budapest was destroyed. 56 destroyed again, and we were sitting in the cellar. And again, no food and the usual things. But then sort of things settled down, and settled down by saying it that the Russians realized that they are not going to leave Hungary free, and they came and occupied Hungary again beginning of November 1944. And I was a student at the academy. So the next couple of year or so, I graduated. I did my graduation. I had all the violins, recital and everything, except one subject which I didn't do, and I'm very ashamed of it, and it was Marxism. I didn't do, can you imagine? I didn't do the exam so I didn't receive my diploma till about 35 years later, when the post came and I received my.
And you still haven't studied Marxism?
I still haven't done, but I still could. Well, I was able to make my career, so this is job. So but this is how we lived. This is how we lived.
Yeah. So how did you eventually get out of Hungary?
Well, the reason, after this, my first visit to the West, which was in Genova, 1956, I was overwhelmed, absolutely overwhelmed. I remember sitting on the seaside and just look at and the whole atmosphere. I was just like blood was inside, my God, I want to live here. I cannot live in a prison anymore. So this gave me the idea that I have to, sooner or later, I wanted to leave. Well, in the meantime, I was again sent to another competition, which in Germany, in Munich, which I won the first prize. But the next time, I received some invitations. Because of the Paganini competition, I was offered some concerts in Paris in 1958. I was offered the concerts, and that I knew this would be the last time I'm leaving the country. So I came out with a normal passport. But as soon as I did my concerts in Paris, I asked for political asylum in France, and that's when started my new life.
What was it like saying goodbye to your grandmother at that point?
That was very, very difficult, because that's the only reason I was hesitating so to leave my home was my grandmother, who brought me up, and also my mother, who asked her to take care of my son, and she certainly did take care. You know what she did? Practice. Always I'm practicing. She locked the door, and I had to do my practice. And no child wants to. But it was important.
How many hours a day?
4 or 5 hours. Yeah. She locked the door. No food. No drink. Practice. And when she didn't hear me playing that.
But you had
And
ways
so
of...
it was very difficult to leave her, but finally I decided, it's my life. And luckily she had her son there and another grandchild, so she wasn't alone. But just to let you know that for years, as soon as the Hungarian government heard about my defection, they took away her telephone. I wasn't able to write letters to her. But luckily, what is it, I'm at 58, 7 years or later, by that time, of course, we lived in London, and she came and visited us. So I saw her, she saw me, she saw my wife, she saw my first child. So we met, but it was very difficult to leave her. But I had to do it.
So you arrived in Paris and you were performing concerts there. What was that like? And did you speak French at that point?
I did some. I spoke some French, but I spoke mainly English, because already as a child, my grandmother thought about it that I have to learn English, so I had an English lesson. But Paris, and of course, one of the most beautiful cities today, but I didn't see any future for as a musician. I wanted to go to America because my teacher Zatoretsky, who also left in the Revolution, got a job in Bloomington, Indiana, which is one of the top universities in America, and we were in constant touch with each other, and he wanted me to join him, and of course I wanted to go there. Unfortunately, by that time, it was very late with refugee numbers. America, no other country, it was 1958, 2 years after the revolution. They didn't want to have any refugees. And so my refugee status was not possible. And secondly, it was already very late for the new academic year to get a scholarship. So I couldn't go to America. And then, as it happened, these kind of things happen in life, unexpected things. I got a letter from a friend of mine, a good colleague of mine who I used to play together, that there is a job going in Holland. There's an orchestra, very nice provincial orchestra in Holland, who was looking for a second concertmaster, for a second, as they say, first concertmaster. So he said, why don't you come and try? And there I was, really, I had no future in France and I didn't know what to do. And I thought I would try. But that was a big decision in my life. Again, positive. Why? For positive. It changed my life. Not only that, I got a job. I was not yet 22 years old to lead an orchestra, which I signed a 3 years contract. But the orchestra gave me a lot of opportunities to perform. So practically I played all my concertos for the first time with the orchestra. And of course the second most positive thing of my going to Holland was meeting my wife.
And what point did you...
Excellent. Long story. Again, it's this friend of mine who invited me to come to Holland. He met on the street Susie. But he heard Hungarian speaking, and they started to talk. And then he said, "I'm a musician." I said, "Yes, I heard about that. He's coming to make an audition. Would you like to? I invite you. Come and meet him." And we met, and then as they say, the rest of history. And it was only 53 years ago. Six. Yes. I wasn't very good in mathematics. So this changed my life, and I was very happy there with the orchestra. In the meantime, I went to Paris and won the Jacques Thibault competition, which again gave me a lot of opportunities to play solo. They appreciated that I, as a concertmaster, won a big international competition, and I was offered even more concerts. So it was very, very positive.
Can you talk a bit about the experience of doing competitions, kind of high-level competitions? What does that feel like?
Yes. Well, it was different in those days. I think it's different. But I applied to three competitions, and as it happened, I won them, all the three. And in those years, by winning such a big competition, we were offered a lot of engagements. Now there are too many competitions, and some of the competitions don't offer you concerts. And everything has changed, and I'm not very much favor. I've been on the juries, by the way, of all the big international competitions, so I've got a little bit more insight what's happening there, and I'm not very positive about it. But what I wanted to talk about, what it was important again, which I'm sure, I know that you wanted to ask about Menuhin, György Menuhin, because again it changed my life from after Holland. I knew Menuhin, I met him first time in 1956, still I was in Hungary, before going to the Paganini competition. My teacher, my professor, Menuhin came to London, to Budapest to play, and my teacher knew him and asked him, I would like you to present a young pupil of mine. So I went to play for Menuhin, I remember. And this kind of relationship or so, during my years in Holland, he came to Amsterdam almost every year to perform. So I watched it, and then every time he came, I went to see him. And he asked me to this hotel room, and again he asked me to play. And he asked me, what are you doing in Holland? I said, this and this, and I'm with this orchestra, and then they gave me a lot of opportunities to play. And then he told me, listen, as soon as your contract expires, you have to come and live in England. Because England, London, is the center of music. And you have to live as a young performer, you have to live in London, which was, by that time, I was very happy to hear about it. But again, it was a question of residency. Mm-hmm. Because by that time we had Dutch travel papers. I wasn't, and I wasn't a Dutch citizen yet. Dutch travel papers, which I could travel everywhere in the world, but in England, the only way to come in as a refugee was like a student, So I arrived to London in 1961 as Menuhin's student. He gave a letter of recommendation to the Home Office saying that he is looking after me, and he would appreciate if the Home Office would give me a first, I think they gave me three months stay, then another 3 months, then another 6 months. So this is the way we arrived to England.
Can you talk about a bit about Menuhin? What was he like as a man and as a violinist?
I adored him, obviously, and for me, one of the first most important thing was what he did in his life, and for me, at the age of 28, when he was 28, 1944, he met Bartók. And he, as a young man, realized the genius of Bartók. And he became friends, and again, it's his history that he asked Bartók to write a solo sonata for him, and also, but you have to know that before Bartók heard Menuhin playing his first sonata, and apparently that's how the story goes, that he was absolutely astounded to hear a young player, to hear, that's a very complicated work, even today, after so many years, to hear a violinist playing a living, hearing a work played by a living composer, by a young man. Mm-hmm. So that was the first form for me, and of course personally we became quite close, and he gave this letter. And through all the years, I didn't become a pupil of his. He heard me a few times, but I didn't become a pupil. But I'm absolutely grateful. I was absolutely grateful. That was the way I was able to come to this country, which is my home, has been my home ever since, and that was the second major happening in my life. Leaving Hungary, going to Holland, and then coming to England.
And you mentioned Bartók. You're very well known for your interpretations of Bartók. Can you how do you get to the essence of Bartók when you play?
Yeah. Well, it's quite useful to be born in that country, but it's not absolutely necessary. I heard many great Bartók interpretations by non-Hungarians, but it helps. My teacher, Zaturecki, played with Bartók. So as a 16, 17 years old, I played Bartók works, solo sonata, the violin concerto, studied with a person who played with Bartók. So I already as a child, as a young adult, I understood the style. And of course, during many years, during all my lifetime, for me it's like just natural, and one of the great composers like Beethoven or Brahms, and that's what I spent my whole life playing Bartók and teaching Bartók. So
I'm actually just realising how the time's gone very, very quickly. We're only through.
yes, and we
questions.
spend too much time with the childhood, but I think it's important for people to know.
But maybe you can, as a final question before we hear you playing, what do you think are the most important values that for young violin players now? What should they be trying to do in their work and their practice?
You mean technically? No.
As an all-round.
Well, as the music, and I've always, as my teacher Leo Weiner used to say, that we have to look always behind the music, not just the notes. What the music tells about to you, and what I'm always trying to tell my students, that ask questions from yourself. What do you see in that phrase? What it means for you? Mm-hmm. And that's what I think it gives them personality. Mm-hmm. That to put their own personality on the music they play. Because after all, we are musicians, and that should be the most important, the music. But for that, and that's the first thing, what for every instrumentalist, you have to play our instruments perfectly. And that part can be learned, which I always see with the players from Asia. The technical part of the instrument can be. But you are only able to express yourself as a musician if you are absolutely comfortable on your instrument. You are at home and feel at home, and that gives you confidence.
Maybe one more story, the story of your violin, which is a very special violin.
Yes, it's not the one which I have here, but it's a beautiful Stradivarius violin, which I'll tell it a quick sentence. It's one of my visits to America, Chicago. I was playing with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and as you know, Chicago is one of the great orchestras in the world. Every second valley has a Stradivarius, Guarnerius, and so by that time I had a very nice György Guadagnini violin, which I got it here in London. No, it wasn't a great instrument, but it was a nice quality, beautiful Guadagnini. So I was playing my debut concert with the Chicago Symphony on that, and then after the concert, a gentleman arrived and introduced himself in his name, and he said, "Oh, Mr. Pauk, I have got some instruments. I would like very much to show it to you." These kind of things happened quite a lot in your life, and I said, "Okay, that's fine." But this man really looked very, very serious and enthusiastic, and so I asked him to come to the hotel next day, and he brought, I think, 2 Strats and 2 Didgeridoos just to show me, and I was trying and playing for hours and hours, and I said, "Yes, but a little bit more, a little bit." And I remember that day already I had a plane to catch to Canada. So I said, "I'm sorry, but please tell me which of the violin, which one do you prefer? They are all lovely, but really, which you prefer? I said, this one. I said, you can have it. So I almost fainted. My wife was there, and she had to hold me back. I would have fainted. So these kind of things, you know, happen. It happened, and it's a true story because it happened to me. After a few years, it felt a little bit uncomfortable, you know, that perhaps the family is going to die or something, but actually he's still alive today. They might ask the instrument back, so I suggested to him that would you consider to sell this violin? And I said, oh, you can use it, no, but I would like to own it. I said, yes, all right. So I bought this violin, and it's 5 years later that he presented to me. And ever since I'm the owner of this great Stradivarius, which I don't use anymore because I retired from concertizing, and it sits in the safe of a bank.
Well, we're about to hear you
Yes. I wanted you to hear a little bit of my playing. One of my last concerts in Japan, which I played the Mendelssohn Concerto, which everybody knows, and I thought you will enjoy it.
And this is on the Strad, is it?
Of course, yeah.
Right.
és így tovább. This is a concert I played in Tokyo with the NHK orchestra.
It was beautiful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be an interval now.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for your.
I would like to introduce you to my first student, Gyorgy Pauk, and especially Tadashi, my long-time pianist friend, who has been accompanying my student for at least 10 years or 12 years. And I'm very, very grateful for him that he came. So György is playing to the Schubert A minor sonata first one. Just that you let know, I haven't learned them playing this. Especially ask them to play pieces which I haven't played. Bravo. Very nice, beautiful, very musical, very nice. I found it a little too slow. It sounded to me almost like a slow movement. And that was the one thing. And the other thing was beauty. I thought it was a little too aggressive. And always think about long lines. So not too slow. Again, no, it's a tempo, don't slow it down. It's a little, this was a good tempo, but keep the tempo. I would play. Make the line. Yeah, just from it on. Take two balls. And it's your thing, so sing it. No, you heard the bar before?
phrases. Second time, just a little different. It's a better tempo, I think it's moving. It's more alive. Do you feel that it's a little bit more alive? I wouldn't make a ritenuto, but I think it's composed. So play the same da-da-da, and the phrase. Yeah. Sometimes, composers write, especially not so much with Schubert, but with Brahms, pianissimos, too soon. We should always look at where the phrase goes. In this case, I feel that it's if we already play the pianissimo here, then you cannot do a diminuendo. So come out a little more. And that's a real pianissimo. Lovely. So anyway, nice one. sonatines, Schubert. But for me, it's like a sonata. It's 4 movements, actually. So 4. Perhaps the most difficult thing for a musician, I find, to play Schubert. Mozart and Schubert, especially Schubert, because all the small things matter. The colors, the tempo changes, that's what matters. This is not such a complicated piece, but the fantasy and the other image of sonata. We have to know all about Schubert, what kind of life he had, and he has a terrible, tragic life. And all Schubert's life is all in his music. All this sadness, sometimes written allegro moderato. It's always, for me, I see the moderato, not the allegro. It's always, yes, but. Because he had such a terribly difficult life. Now we are going to the Beethoven first sonata, D major. Again, I haven't heard, but I'm sure she's going to play it last. Opus 12, number 1, is the first Beethoven of the 10th sonata. Different music, very different, not so sad. Bravo. At the end? Why are you rushing at the end? What I want to say, the most important, totally different kind of music. It's called Beethoven. No, what I mean is, Beethoven has, all his music has weight, substance, weight. I mean, what does that? Beethoven. It has substance, and very often, mainly in the forte passages was okay, but in the piano passages, you were too discreet. La, 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 la. You have to come forward. Hear it in piano, accord, but it's Beethoven. And again, I will show you a few things. So, what things just for the second half. Play this, la, 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 just from this. Thank you. Next one. Thank you. Third one. Fourth one. Other thing, this comes 4 times. So we should make a nice line. So what I suggest, la, the first one. All goes together. It means 4 times. Yeah. Okay. What is difficult, to find in this movement? Allegro con brio. Con brio means little with life. Con brio with brio. It shouldn't sound fast. It shouldn't sound too slow. And the character, what I said. It's imagine, it's like you're playing the trumpet. Very triumphant, and 3 through the end. Don't make a diminuendo. Again, Beethoven uses very often crescendos, the subito pianos. We have to take it very, very seriously. To play the crescendo till the last moment, and subito piano with part timing. Try it again. Come on. Back to D major. What I said, of course, you are accompanying it. Articulate. Tade! Sorry, but... It's very total. A lot of articulation. Just from here. Take 2 balls. You start the phrase, the dumbo. With a weight. Oh, big. Of course, you too. Anyway? Yeah. I said we should ask questions. Why should I? Perhaps it's printed. That's the usual answer. Why do you play it, Ambo? Because it's printed. So what? But I would say la. No? La. For a violinist to play ha, you need no. Very often, you know, there's the best edition, the handy editions, but it's the fingerings and the bowings are done by unknown people. Actually, it's Max Rostel, who was not. Yes, but 50 years ago. But again, if you think, la, then I start. Little thing, but again, 50 years ago, they used to. Today, the style is much clearer, so we use totally different fingerings. Smooth. It's a slide, and it's not loud. And you can make the line, you go la 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 la. If you start, I think it's piano. But if you start, and then where do you go? Actually, it comes 4 times. Come on, you saw. each note. Ba, ba, be, and long. La, ba, ba, ba. Ma perché sostiene? And back. And you articulate dramatic, very dramatic. Yeah. And then lift you up, ta-da-da, 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 and make the line, ta-da-da, 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 ta-da-da. It's too tame, a little bit too tame for me. Ta-da-da, ta-da-da. No crescendo. Make a long line. subito piano. No? Take a little time. Instead of ta 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 la pa 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 so start a little more. Pa 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 pa. It should be amazing. I think the long note is too short. Very triumphant. Good. Well, we'll go on with it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you agree that was an absolutely fascinating afternoon.
It's worthwhile starting to get the violin.
We are lesser mortals to hear a living legend, this afternoon, speak so movingly and beautifully, heartbreakingly about his early life. Several people here, I noticed, were in tears when he spoke.
It's not my intention.
It still worked. It was incredible. And then, of course, we moved to the Masterclass this afternoon. And all I can say is how fortunate these young ladies are to have this gentleman look after this Masterclass. Wouldn't we love to have been in the Masterclass and have a maestro like this supervise us? I would say. It's extraordinary, actually, when you talked about your early life, as I said, a lot of people were in tears. And what emerged out of it is the courage and the tenacity and the good luck and the good fortune.
That's very important.
Indeed,
Yeah.
that followed you in life.
It is
And
very.
of course, hearing your story, one's reminded of the old Jewish toast, l'chaim, to life. Because that's what it's all about, isn't it?
It is.
Follow life through.
It's
Follow life
still.
through. So we've had a marvellous afternoon thanks to this genius, this maestro. And it's been adorned by some celebrities to whom I must mention, give due credit for. Susie, of course, and her family. And of course, behind every famous man there's an extraordinary wife who knows better about certain things.
She does.
A number of years.
Not
Lily
that
Hockhauser, delightful to see you here, Mrs. Hockhauser. Gordon Back and Eva. There's just some of the people who have come to adorn this afternoon and listen to your remarkable contribution to our talk. May you carry on in the same way for many, many years and give us much to people's coming up as you have performed for us in the past.
Thank you.
Because you have a marvellous contribution to make to the life of this country.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.